Happy Tuesday, everyone. So I'm doing a little impromptu stream in the middle of the day because something interesting happened yesterday in New Hampshire. And I'm just gonna unpack this publicly. I'm completely unprepared for this stream. Exactly what you want to hear when you're watching someone on the internet. But a funny thing happened in New Hampshire yesterday. A lawsuit was filed by the teachers' unions regarding the anti-CRT bill that passed in New Hampshire at the beginning of the year. You might also know this as the divisive concept bill. But I have the complaint. I have scanned it. I have not looked at it in any depth. I thought, since I have to do this anyway, we might as well do this together. And if you guys enjoy some wonky stuff, because this is going to be a little bit in the weeds, I'm actually going to be reading the complaint and we'll have a conversation in the chat about what you guys think it means. Why does my sound so weird? Does my sound weird to anyone else? I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully that clears up on its own. That's, usually the tactic I take. But we're going to read this here complaint and we're going to find out what the teachers in New Hampshire are so upset about. And that's how we're going to spend our Tuesday afternoon today. What the hell is going on with my sound? I just did an interview. Sound sounded fine. Does it sound weird to anyone else? Let me know in the chat. It might just be on my end. It very well could just be my headphones. Okay, Alexandra says it sounds normal. Cool. Thank you, Alexandra. Well, guys, before we get into it, I am still working on getting 100 new supporters into my locals community by the end of 2020. And so this is an important goal because the thing of it is I need locals in order to stay independent. Keeping me independent means I don't need to answer to anyone else, which means I can always tell you guys the truth, regardless of what some editor or overlord thinks of it. I can speak my mind freely without fear of repercussion. It also means I have time to do things like talk about lawsuits and investigate CRT curriculums and doing all the things that need to be done in order to create the content that I create. So if you guys like this content, if you enjoy it, if it adds value to your life in any way, please consider joining my locals community. Locals is the very best way to support the work I do. Of course, I love when you guys support me on YouTube and send super chats and all that good stuff. But really, locals is the very best place to support me because when you become a member of my locals community, you get exclusive access to perks that you ain't going to get anywhere else, such as 2 Zoom calls with me every single week. Right now, we do them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That is going to be changing in the new year. And in fact, I will be announcing this week in my locals what the schedule is for next year because I'm figuring it out, but I think I've pretty much got it. We actually do have a Zoom call today at 6 p.m. If you want to come and join us, you will be right in time for our community Zoom today at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So in our community Zooms, it's just an open Zoom where you can come in, talk about whatever you want. You can interact with me. You can interact with other members of the community. It's pretty rad. It's a little bit like bitch session, support group. Lots of love, though. We're going to be doing lots of great things in locals in 2022. So now is the very best time to become a member. You can do it for $5 a month. You can do it for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can make a one-time gift. If you're really strapped for cash, email me. I'll hook you up. I don't ever want finances to be the reason that people don't join if they really want to be in locals. But I'll hook you up with some free months if you're strapped for cash. And you can do all that by heading over to kp.locals.com/support. And it would really help me out, guys. It would be the very best Christmas present you could buy me is by becoming a member of my locals community. And the information is pinned to the top of the chat, if that makes it easier. All right. I can join you beginning of next year. Oh, that's fantastic. Perfect. That's just as good. Just as good so far as I'm concerned. All right, guys, let's dig into this complaint. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. Not and never have been. So I am not going to really be arguing this from a legal perspective. I'm more so looking at this as just like helpful information. As information. Can I make this bigger? Hang on. You see how big I can make it and still have it fit on my screen. And that way you guys can see it big. Well, that's pretty good, right? I think that's pretty good. So the first thing I want to show you guys, okay. So I want to at the very top set expectations for what we're going to see in this complaint. There is one exhibit in this complaint. There is one exhibit. Do you guys want to see the one exhibit that exists in this complaint? This is all I know about this complaint so far. Is that this is apparently like the biggest piece of evidence that they have to offer. Now, okay, maybe I should do a little preface. At the beginning of the year, the state of New Hampshire attached a divisive concepts bill to its state budget, which bans some components of critical race theory. It doesn't, so far as I'm concerned, ban the most important components. So that means that critical race theory is still absolutely being taught in New Hampshire. But because the teachers never read the dang bill, most of them don't even know what's in it anyway, which is kind of ironic. No, is it their feelings? Kind of. That's actually a really close answer, probably closer than you might have wanted to. Is the exhibit their feelings? No. Let me show you the exhibit. This is the exhibit right here. It's a message on Facebook. Now, I don't condone the content of the message. I don't condone it. But it is. This is literally right here the only exhibit that the teachers in New Hampshire have provided as part of this complaint. A Facebook message. I'm not kidding. So I think we can all see where this is going real fast. Real fast. All right, let's dig into it. Let's see. Concisely put, the divisive concept statute was designed to limit teaching in New Hampshire of ideas and societal concerns not to their liking, thereby curtailing speech, limiting the free exchange of ideas within our classrooms, and depriving New Hampshire students of their constitutionally and statutorily guaranteed right to an adequate education. All right, let's just stop you right there. Teachers in public schools do not have free speech. It's really that simple. When a teacher is acting as a teacher in a public school, they do not have free speech protections. They don't. They do in their private lives. But when they are in a public school, which we should all remember is a government school, they are state employees, and the state does not have free speech protections. So I think we can already see very clearly where exactly this complaint is going. The resulting enactment is at once unconstitutionally vague in violation of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Oh, check this out. Chills teacher speech in violation of the First Amendment. Teachers don't have free speech protections. Sorry. And conflicts and compels an abridgment of New Hampshire's Constitution and laws, thereby creating further vagueness, fear, and uncertainty as to what New Hampshire teachers may teach, and as a result, hurts New Hampshire students. Now, as a reminder, the bill in New Hampshire that was passed was extremely specific about the things that you couldn't teach. So there was no vagueness. There was no room for interpretation. So that's all nonsense. The divisive concept statute invites partisanship. Oh my God, this is rich. The divisive concepts statute invites partisanship into our schools and deputizes private, politically motivated individuals to enforce its vague prescriptions. Indeed, in recent weeks, the divisive concept statute has been seized upon by radical political groups to rationalize an offer of an economic bounty for informers who lodge on a recently created state-established and Department of Education maintained website complaints about public school teachers. Holy shit. Do you guys remember? This was covered all over the place. The Moms for Liberty, I wonder if Rachel knows this. Moms for Liberty in New Hampshire offered a $500 bounty if people could provided information on teachers breaking the law. And that bounty is literally cited in this lawsuit. Holy shit. I need to tweet this right now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is important. Holy shit. I cannot believe they cited this in the lawsuit. This is amazing. I'm tweeting right now. The teachers suing over the anti-critical race theory bill in New Hampshire actually cite. I always forget if it's C or S would cite. I do. I'm a horrible speller. The Moms for Liberty NH $500 bounty as evidence that teachers' rights are being violated in the complaint. Oh my god, this is like fucking gold. I love it. All right, sorry. Twitter break. Sorry, we're back. The threat of a bounty looms large in addition to obvious reputational consequences and penalties, including firing, and the Department Education Commissioner may therefore seek to impose, underscoring the state's chilling effect, not just on teachers' constitutionally protected rights, but as a result of the education students must have to prepare for life, college, and careers and citizenship. Indeed, teachers, including plaintiffs in this action, have been made the subject of online harassment, obscenities, and vicious attacks as a direct result of the climate of political intimidation created by and with the facilitation of various defendants. Yes, I did opt for the C. I did opt for the C. The teachers are literally arguing that the people opposing the teachers are the ones who have politicized everything. That's their argument. Wow. The culture wars have no place. I'm so glad I'm reading this live. The culture wars have no place in New Hampshire's classroom. Our public school teachers and support staff are dedicated public servants who have stepped up and devoted themselves beyond measure during the pandemic to continue to teach our children. Yet they are being politically targeted and threatened with public shaming and undeserved disciplinary proceedings, not to mention the cost of defending themselves for doing their jobs in accordance with the curriculum formally adopted by the state. New Hampshire parents, too, are entitled to send their children to schools, expecting a full and robust exchange of ideas in the classrooms, uncorrupted by censorship and extremist partisanship. Yes, it is the teachers who are the poor victims in this entire scenario because it is hopelessly and unconstitutionally vague on its face. The state and its agencies have, on at least two separate occasions since the passage, waded in an attempt to clarify the meaning and the scope of the divisive concept statute. In July 2021, the Commission for Human Rights, Department of Justice, and Department of Education issued a guidance document entitled Frequently Asked Questions New Discriminatory Practice Prohibitions Applicable to Public Prohibitions blah, 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 in an attempt to define certain ambiguous words in the statute and identify what teachers may or may not teach. Well, it seems to me that they got the guidance that they were looking for after it became clear that the attempted classification had fallen woefully short. On September 7th, 2021, in response to a request from the Human Rights Commission, the Attorney General again attempted, in a formal opinion, to resolve the confusion and identify what is and is not prohibited by the statute. The need for repeated clarification and restatement of each of these state entities underscores the law's vagueness and the unquestionable difficulty public school teachers have in understanding it. Dude, do you know what one of the things that this law bans is? It literally bans that teachers cannot teach that one race is superior to another. Is that vague to anyone here? Is it vague to anyone here what it means to say you cannot teach that one race is superior to another? If teachers have trouble understanding that, they probably shouldn't be teaching in the first place. Well, the Attorney General, and by the way, the Attorney General of New Hampshire does not like this bill. He doesn't. The Attorney General of New Hampshire sabotaged the actual bill. He did Chris Sununu's dirty work to sabotage the actual bill. The watered down version of the bill that passed is entirely the Attorney General, well, not entirely, at least a little bit the Attorney General's fault. It's actually Chris Sununu's fault. But the Attorney General was Chris Sununu, did Chris Sununu's dirty work. So I have no consideration for the Attorney General's feelings in this either, to be honest, because he freaking sabotaged the bill in the first place. Well, the Attorney General's September 7th opinion making strides towards interpreting and seemingly limiting some of the unconstitutional educational requirements imposed on teachers by the divisive concept statute, it does not fully cure the state's defects or the statute's defects, particularly as to the unbridled claims of third-party bounty hunters. When they're saying third-party bounty hunters, what they mean is literally moms for liberty. Moms. Anytime they say bounty hunters, I'm a member of the Moms for Liberty in New Hampshire. I'm a dues-paying member. They're moms. They're literally moms that get together in other moms' dining rooms and they have meetings and they talk about what's going on in the schools. That's what they mean by third-party bounty hunters. Or cadre of informers assembled through the Department of Education's website. It is comprehensive, nor is it comprehensive or binding authority. And while the Attorney General's opinion is dated September 7th as of the date of this complaint, the Department of Education does not even reference it, much less include it as a part of its purported governing interpretations listed on the DOE website. Blah, 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 blah. Guys, it's 50 pages long. I'm going to skip around a little bit. I am. I'm sorry. I'm not reading 50 pages. Yeah, exactly. Mom the bounty hunter. Plaintiff Ryan Richmond is a high school world history teacher at Timberland Regional High School. Guys, do you remember fucking Timberland Regional High School is always involved? Do you guys remember that school board meeting that I went to 2 weeks ago? I'm gonna fucking hell. Do you guys remember that school board meeting that the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire went to 2 weeks ago? Where was that? Timberlane, sorry, I can't pronounce words sometimes. Timberlane Regional High School. It was that school's school board meeting. Same one. I'm going to drop this in my Signal group with the Libertarians right now. Look who's suing the state of New Hampshire over the anti-CRT bill. Oh, God. It's just like it never ends. It is the same freaking school that we went to this school board meeting 2 weeks ago because 2 weeks before that, this school board literally arrested the chair of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire because he wasn't wearing a mask at the school board meeting. They arrested him. And so 2 weeks ago, as a follow-up, like 20 of us went to their school board meeting, sat in the audience, were perfectly respectable until they decided that no one was allowed to speak at the school board meeting. And then there was a little gentle heckling. I'm not going to lie, there was heckling. And then the school board was so freaked out that we had shown up that they shut down the entire school board meeting and went into private session. We're going back. It's not over. But this is the same effing school. Since the start of the school year, the divisive concept statute has had the effect of chilling Mr. Richmond's ability to provide his students with the nature, content, and quality of education guaranteed and mandated by the New Hampshire Constitution and laws. His interaction with his students has been materially curtailed given Mr. Richmond's uncertainty as to what he can and cannot teach and what questions he can and cannot answer. Well, then Mr. Richmond is an idiot. Mr. Richmond is then an idiot that cannot read and interpret a 4-page bill. As a result, his students, along with all the students of all other New Hampshire teachers in this complaint, are put at a competitive disadvantage as they are not receiving the comprehensive education to which they are entitled to. Plaintiff John Doobie is a high school U.S. history and AP history teacher at Timberlane Regional High School. Again, Timberlane fucking Regional High School strikes again. At the Divisive Concept statute passed, Mr. Doobie signed an online petition promising to teach honest history. Oh, no. So this guy signed a petition promising to break the law. That's what he did. He probably didn't even bother to read the 4-page bill and signed an online petition promising to break the law. This is exactly the type of person you want teaching your kids. A New Hampshire right-wing group published all the names of the teachers who had signed the petition pledging to shame them. Dude, their names were literally public. It was a public petition. New Hampshire is the #1 freest state in the country. We beat Florida, not by a little bit, by a lot. #1 freest state in the country, kicked Florida's ass. So you can think of all you want by this lawsuit right here, but we're doing pretty good. You want to compare us to Texas? Texas is number 21. We're #1. Mr. Doobie was subject to online harassment, threats, and obscenities for simply doing his job in the classroom, requiring federal and local law enforcement intervention. He continues to fear for his own personal safety, and in fact has had to install personal security and safety equipment at his home in light of the threats. See Exhibit A. Holy shit. This is the exhibit. This is the exhibit. This is the one thread, the one message that teacher has gotten. And he's like, oh, I have to install personal security at my house. Dude, get a fucking life. I get worse than this every single day. You are not in danger in New Hampshire. Go out and buy some guns. Go out and do what I and my husband did and buy a whole metric F ton of guns if you get mean emails on the internet. Are you kidding me? You are in no physical safety. I'm sorry. That's such bullshit. Plaintiff Jocelyn Morrell is a 9th grade teacher. I knew it was in Nashua. I fucking knew it. I hadn't been able to find any evidence yet that it was in Nashua high schools. Nashua is one of the bigger, cities in New Hampshire. I hadn't been able to find any evidence that it was in Nashua. But the fact is that there's a teacher in this lawsuit from Nashua High School tells me it's in Nashua High School. Texas is ranked number 21 on the Freedom Index of freest states. New Hampshire is #1. Florida is #2. Texas, number 21. Texas ain't free. Texas is mediocre at best. Plaintiff Jocelyn Morrell is a 9th grade English teacher at Nashua High School North. She has been teaching for 10 years. Since the Divisive Concept statute was passed, Miss Morrell has limited her classroom discussion of race to specific passages in assigned literature and has avoided any discussion of racism's systemic impact with her students. Good. Which tells me that she was teaching critical race theory before the bill and has now adjusted her behavior because she doesn't want to break the law. Plaintiff Kimberly Green Elliott is a reading specialist at Fairgrounds Middle School and lives in Merrimack, New Hampshire, where I live. So this probably means that, again, here's the thing. I fucking told people in Merrimack, I got into a big old argument when they changed the Divisive Concept bill. I told a group of parents in Merrimack, I said, "This is gonna result in critical race theory still being taught in your school." And they were like, "No, Carlin, the Republicans wouldn't lie to us." I was like, "The Republicans are lying to you. Critical race theory is still gonna be taught in your school." They were like, "No, no, our dear Republican leaders would never lie to us." This is telling us right here that I was correct. That it is absolutely in the high school in the town that I live in, and Merrimack High School. Let's read. Plaintiff Kimberly Green Elliott is a reading specialist at Fairgrounds Middle School and lives in Merrimack, New Hampshire. Miss Elliott has 2 children, a daughter who graduated from Merrimack Public Schools and is now in college, and a son who currently attends Merrimack High School. Miss Elliott believes the divisive concept statute will prevent her son from receiving a full and robust education for, among other reasons, those highlighted in paragraph 6. In fact, since the divisive concept bill was passed, Ms. Elliott has observed a noticeable difference in the breadth of education her son has received and has even seen one of her son's teachers self-censor on controversial topics. Well, actually, good. You know what? Maybe I take it back. It seems as though the teachers at Merrimack High School have learned that they shouldn't break the effing law. So maybe I take it back. Take it back for the moment. For the moment. I still think the bill in New Hampshire does allow critical race theory to be taught in schools, but teachers are going to have to figure that out. George Andre Veloso Nunez says you can't collect rainwater in Texas. That's why it's 21. Well, probably some other reasons too. Dude, every state is better than California. It is not hard to be better on the Freedom Index than California. Plaintiff Megan Evelyn Durden is an art teacher at Charlotte Avenue Elementary School. Her daughter is at a public elementary school in Nashua. As described in paragraph 6, Miss Durden believes the divisive concept statute will prevent Miss Durden's daughter from receiving a full and robust education for, among other reasons. You know, if parents want their children to be raised as little anti-racist activists, they have the freedom to be able to teach their students at home, away from other students, to be little anti-racist activists. They have the freedom to do that. They're choosing not to do that. Hang on a second. Okay, never mind. Never mind. That's another issue. Plaintiff Local 8027 ATF AFT, God, AFT, I'm dyslexic sometimes. New Hampshire AFL-CIO is a labor union representing approximately 3,400 public school teachers, school support staff, cities and towns, and blah, 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 blah. The teachers' unions. The teachers' unions. Defendant, New Hampshire Education Commissioner Frank Edelbutt, in his official capacity as Commissioner of Commissioner of the Department of Education, blah, blah, blah. Just listing off John Formella is the guy that fucked up the bill. All right, jurisdiction, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's take a look at this. Background. Yeah, guys, only 48 likes. Come on, mount that like button. I know it's a little bit more wonky today. I know, but it would still really help me out, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm trying to help you guys. We're doing this together. This is like research I do on my own. I'm just doing it in front of an audience right now. Education is a vital function of state and local governments. Public education is the lifeblood of our democracy and enables our children to be prepared for their lives, for college career, blah, 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 blah. With our free and diverse educational system, broad exposure, and the freedom to explore and examine ideas of scholarship, art, history, science, together with the development of critical basic skills, are essential to training our young citizens, blah, blah, blah. Critical thinking and the ability to independently and freely evaluate ideas exchanged in public debate are core skills at the foundation of all educational training. Well, yes, I actually would agree with that. I would agree with that. The problem is that public school teachers are not teaching children how to think. They're not teaching kids how to think. in any way. I challenge the lawyers in this complaint to prove that these teachers are actually teaching critical thinking. Aside from being a country devoted to freedom, democracy, opportunity, and justice for all, what sets our great nation apart is its unique diversity of race, ethnicity, religion, viewpoint, among many others, and our steadfast commitment to celebrate diversity rather than muzzle it. Well, then kids should be able to ask questions in schools without being failed by their teachers for not holding their political point of view. Politically driven censorship, reminiscent of the 1933 book burning here, in Germany or in Austria, have no place in a vital and vibrant America, and is especially unwelcome in American classrooms. Oh, book burning. You mean like when you guys banned Dr. Seuss? That type of book burning? Hmm. Our judiciary understands the anathema that censorship represents and the need to protect it. Nearly a century ago, the United States Supreme Court recognized the mere knowledge of concepts, perspectives, and events cannot reasonably be regarded as harmful when taught in the public schools. That is particularly true today when students armed with the internet and other technological advances have free and unfiltered access to information more than any other time in history. The public school classroom, the cornerstone of a sound educational system, that's certainly up for debate, must be free, must be a safe forum for the Yo, these people have the gall to argue that the public school classroom is a safe forum for the free exchange of ideas and information, and in the same breath are suing over a law that says that they're not allowed to teach that one race is superior to another? Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to skip down a little bit, guys. Nonsense, 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 okay. The divisive concept statue. On June 25th, 2021, New Hampshire lawmakers launched a devastating blow to the education New Hampshire parents have come to expect and thrust upon New Hampshire's teachers an impossible predicament. Rather than uphold the long-standing tradition of educational excellence, New Hampshire legislators, as part of a political arrangement necessitated by a deadline for a timely enactment of a biennial state budget, accepted a falsely premised national political narrative of opposition to political correctness by enacting the statute that is the subject of litigation. It's so dramatic. It's so dramatic, isn't it? They did so in the wake of nationwide efforts to politicize and censor education. As his term drew to a close, President Trump established the 1776 Commission, a group created to promote patriotic education, defined by its opposition to a controversial theorem, the critical race theory. The critical race theory. It's like the Ohio State University, the critical race theory. Oh my god. The critical race theory. I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna get a screenshot of that. I'm gonna make fun of it later. Which they coined toxic propaganda. The New York Times, the 1619 Project, and the late Howard Zinn, author of People's History of the United States. President Trump also issued a November 2020 executive order prohibiting federal institutions from providing diversity and inclusion training and discussing topics without systemic racism, white privilege, and other race and gender bias issues. Willingness to pursue such mandates for thinking, learning, and teaching became, for some, the political litmus test for educational existence. And the original bill, not the one that passed, the original bill was based on this executive order. Nonprofit organizations challenged the above executive order in federal court, arguing that it violated free speech rights and hampered the ability to conduct their businesses, including the ability to conduct training for their workforce on such topics as political bias. Had Trump gotten a second term, they would have gotten around the trouble they ran into in the courts. They figured it out. But sadly, we didn't get that opportunity. A federal judge agreed, enjoining on a nationwide basis the enforcement of the executive order restraining the education and training of federal employees respecting divisive concepts as a violation of the First Amendment. Now, that did run into problems. But like I said, if Trump had had a second term, they had figured out how to get around those problems and they were going to fix it. But that didn't happen. However, none of that matters because teachers in public schools do not have First Amendment protections when they are acting as teachers in public schools. These are fundamentally two different scenarios. Just because a court blocked it for contractors has nothing to do with whether or not teachers in public schools have free speech protection. Listen, I didn't call it the critical race theory. The lawsuit called it the critical race theory. I'm gonna make a t-shirt that says the critical race theory. No, I'm not. That would be a horrible t-shirt. I don't know why anyone would buy that. But I do think it's funny. I do. Nevertheless, as one commentator aptly put it, the rebranding of critical race theory was already a part of the conservative lexicon by that point. Supporters of the divisive concept bans rushed to generate a rash of proposed state legislative measures in various states designed to replicate, if not expand, the federal constraints that had been enjoined based on serious constitutional concern, and New Hampshire was the number one state, the first state to introduce the bill. Spurred on by committed ideological zealots who wanted to rewrite history, some New Hampshire politicians were persuaded to follow suit. After unsuccessfully attempting to pass standalone legislation, no. It was not unsuccessful. It absolutely was not unsuccessful. What happened was they decided as a strategic move to attach the bill to the budget. When they attached the bill to the budget, they tabled the original bill because it was in the budget. It didn't need to exist as a separate standalone bill because it was in the budget. It was not an unsuccessful attempt. It was a strategic move in order to ensure that the bill got passed. And it happened not because of the Democrats, but because of Chris effing Sununu. Chris Sununu was the reason the bill got attached to the budget in the first place because he said he was going to veto the bill. And so they attached the bill to the budget because he was going to have to veto the budget if he was going to veto the bill. Yes, I am advertising to New Hampshire and getting everyone to move here, but only if you are a libertarian or have libertarian tendencies, not if you're a progressive. You can stay wherever you are if you're a progressive. Contact the Free State Project. They'll help you move. After unsuccessfully attempting to pass standalone legislation explicitly banning the teachings of divisive concepts related to race and gender, the legislature included prohibitions against teaching in order to gain the requisite votes to pass the biannual state budget. Yeah, they attached it to the budget. It was a strategic move. The new bill created sections 297 and 298 to conceal its true meaning and purpose. Was entitled The Right to Freedom from Discrimination in Public Workplaces and Education. It joined with contemporaneously enacted amendments, blah, 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 into a single bill, blah, 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 blah. In their effort to legislate around expressly banning CRT and related topics, the legislative sponsors drafted the divisive concept statute with language that was beyond vague and that is vague beyond comprehension. Okay, if you guys want to know, I'm not going to go through it in this video. But if you guys want to see the original bill, I did like 18 videos on them back in the day. Just search my channel and I've read you the bill specifically multiple times. The bill was extremely specific. It was extremely specific in what you couldn't teach. It laid it out very, very clearly. So this is just wrong. This is a lie. The divisive concept statute is broadly couched as seemingly aimed at prohibiting teaching that an individual, by virtue of his or her age, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, marital status, familiar status, mental or physical disability, religion, or national origin, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. Yeah, you cannot teach based on this bill, you cannot teach that people are inherently racist or sexist or oppressive. How is that unclear? How is that unclear at all in any way? You cannot teach that people, on the basis of their immutable characteristics that they are born with, are inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. That is extremely clear. Summarily, the measure was cast as also prohibiting the teaching that people of one age, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, marital status, familiar status, mental or physical disability, religion, national origin cannot and should not attempt to treat others without regard to any of those immutable characteristics. So basically, what it says is like what the bill says is that we should treat people the same regardless of their skin color or gender or any of those things, and that you shouldn't teach people otherwise. You shouldn't teach people that you have to treat them in a specific way based on the color of their skin or based on what's between their legs or anything else. Importantly, the statute authorizes any person claiming to be aggrieved by the violation of the divisive concept statute to initiate a civil action against a school or school district in superior court for legal or equitable relief. The overbreadth and ambiguity of the statute makes it impossible for teachers to follow and highly susceptible to arbitrary discrimination enforcement, particularly by the state, enabled by private citizen bounty hunters and informers. Again, bounty hunters means moms. It really seems as though the entire impetus for this lawsuit, is the bounty, the $500 bounty that Moms for Liberty put on teachers who are breaking the law. Let's just wrap our heads around that for a second. People were screaming and doing all sorts of stuff all over the state about this bill for like dang near a year. And it was a single, like, really clever maneuver from the Moms for Liberty to offer a $500 bounty that has now resulted in this lawsuit. That's amazing. That is amazing. The overbreadth and ambiguity of the oh, I already read that. What does it mean, for example? Oh, God. This is so great. What does it mean, for example, to prohibit teaching that people of one particular group cannot and should not attempt to treat others without regard for their age, sex, gender, mental, or physical disabilities? Indeed, our laws mandate the accommodation of certain groups of people, including those with mental and physical disabilities, and purposefully treat individuals with regard for their chronological age. What does it mean to prohibit teaching that an individual, by virtue of one's age, cannot make one inherently superior or inherently inferior to a younger individual? Why is this so complicated for these supposedly very smart lawyers? Here, too, our laws recognize and plainly differentiate by virtue of one's age. A 12-year-old cannot get a chauffeur's license in most jurisdictions. Holy shit. This is such stretching. Oh my God. Okay, let's see. Can a teacher discuss, debate, or answer questions in their classroom about a policy of affirmative action, a policy that necessarily treats members of certain identified groups differently with regards to their identification? Well, what's the question you want them to answer? Can a teacher discuss, for example, programs such as the Small Business Administration, affirmative action programs for the treatment of the disabled individuals, yes, they can. That's not going to get them in trouble, sorry. Can a teacher, so they are stretching so much. Do you understand? None of these examples have to do with race. None of these examples have to do with race at all. They are trying to avoid the topic entirely. The statutory provisions, arguably prescribing the foregoing remain on the books provided, blah, 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 blah. Moreover, the divisive concept statute constraining mandates squarely collide with long-standing provisions of New Hampshire law. Plaintiff Ryan Richmond, for example, who teaches world history at Timberlane Regional High School, is facing this dilemma. He often asks his students to find an event in the news, bring it to class, and be prepared to discuss its connections with the past. 9 out of 10 times, these stories are about oppression because that's all the news covers. They're stories about exclusionism. They're about lots of things. They're about Black Lives Matter. He says, like many other teachers, is now left wondering whether the divisive concepts statute will affect his class or that instruction. For example, the divisive concept statute prohibits teaching that an individual, by virtue of his religion or race, is oppressive, whether consciously or or unconsciously. Yes. Mr. Richmond teaches, I'm not going to say the G word, G studies. You guys can see it on the screen. What's happening to the Uyghur Muslims? In discussions of the expanding influences of China, can Mr. Richmond teach about Chinese claims of racial and religious superiority? Yes, he can. Yes, he can. And the oppressions of Uyghur Muslim women who are assaulted as a part of their supposed indoctrination program? Yes, he can. He absolutely can, because there is a provision in the bill. This is not even unclear. There was a provision in the bill that said you can teach anything in this bill as long as you are doing it from an objective perspective. The bill literally said he could teach any of those things as long as he's being objective about it. And he's not taking a side. So yes, Ryan, based on a layperson's reading of a 4-page bill that apparently all these lawyers neglected to read, you can absolutely teach those concepts. Can he discuss Russia's oppressive treatment of the Chechen people? Yes, he can. While teaching about the G word and the H word, which are expressly mandated by the New Hampshire state curriculum, Mr. Richmond worries that he can teach about Nazism, Aryan supremacy philosophy generally, and how what. Wow. So he's saying that he can teach white supremacy, but he can't teach all this other stuff, which actually is outlaw. If you are advocating for any of these things that would lead to white people being superior over all other races, that is indeed outlawed by the bill, as it should be. This isn't hard. Mr. Richmond also teaches constitutional law to his high schools. Why are they teaching constitutional law in high school and entire classes around mass G events? I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't teach any of it. I'm not making that argument. But it's like, are there whole classes to these things in high school? Because that seems oddly specific for high school. College, no. High school, yes. He worries about whether or not he can teach affirmative action, the Voting Rights Act, the Equal Rights Amendment, and whether protections are still needed today without running afoul of the divisive concepts statute. He can teach them, as long as he teaches it from an objective perspective. Elizabeth Dubrell, who trains teachers on how to teach civics and social studies at the New Hampshire Historical Society, says it's a blow to an area of education that already lacks robust standards. She says that excuse me, guys. She says that social studies were already hanging on by a fingernail. That's not true. She added, "My concern is that schools will decide that since it's already in peril, it's not worth the risk, and they'll do the bare minimum." Dude, that is just a flat out fabrication. Moreover, under New Hampshire law, public school teachers have a 5-year waiting period before they can achieve tenure. Before a teacher reaches that threshold, school districts can choose not to renew their contract without strongly stated reasons. Oh, so they have real jobs like the rest of us. That's what you're saying, is that before they achieve tenure at 5 years, and by the way, when I was 5 years into my professional job, I was still a raging idiot, and most of you are too. When you're 5 years into the job, you're saying that they have to wait 5 whole years before they don't have a job where they can be fired from like a normal person? Okay. Many believe that teachers that are newer, that are more concerned about making sure they have their jobs and they have a livelihood, are going to feel the most pressure to kowtow to this political manipulation of the curriculum, Richmond said, not talking about anything that could potentially ruffle any feathers at the expense of students. New Hampshire's divisive concept statute is not aimed at any existing teaching practice. Teachers do not indoctrinate their students or see. I can't even read this in a funny voice. This complaint, okay, check this out. This complaint is literally making this argument. Teachers do not indoctrinate their students or seek to have their students agree or disagree with any particular political viewpoint. Rather, they only want to retain the professional integrity and freedom they have traditionally been afforded under New Hampshire law. What is the biggest lie that you've ever seen told in a legal complaint? That might be it right there. They endeavor to open students' minds by exposing them to a wide variety of materials, viewpoints, and challenging concepts without risking their careers or their district's funding. They seek to help children learn how to think and not what to think. Bullshit. The statute's vague and broad language unfairly chills teachers' attempts to do their job and teach a wide range of material viewpoints. And the consequences for a teacher violating the divisive concept statute's broad prohibitions are stark. They include a disciplinary proceeding that can lead to dismissal and reputational disgrace. Strict enforcements of the state's mandate prohibiting only a single interpretation of American history, with the consequences is directly analogous to actions past and present of totalitarian states. Well, the statute doesn't mandate a single interpretation of American history. That's just false. That's absolutely false. Certainly, this is not consistent with a free society or the principles that underlie live free or die. Dude, the teachers' unions are actually trying to own live free or die as their own. Sadly, there says Moms for Liberty. Sadly, there is today no shortage of culture warriors and politically charged groups and individuals who remain laser focused on persecuting public teachers and preventing them from teaching accurate history. In fact, just this month, Moms for Liberty New Hampshire, a group devoted to the non-existent problem of critical race theory in public schools, I told you this lawsuit is because of that bounty, announced a bounty. It's actually in the fucking lawsuit. Holy shit. I'm sorry. Just let me take a screenshot of this real quick. I'm sorry. This is so fucking great. Oh my god. This lawsuit is because of a tweet. It's because of a tweet. It's because of a tweet. This is so great. Hang on. I need to follow up. Oh my god, I need to post these screenshots on Twitter. This is the best. Twitter, by the way, is my notebook where I remember things that I want to look back at later. If you ever wonder why I tweet so much, it's because it's literally my notebook. Wow. Announced a bounty of $500 reward for any individual who reports a teacher violating the ban on divisive concepts, thereby triggering Department of Education inquiry and perhaps more. The Moms for Liberty New Hampshire bounty came hand in hand with Commissioner Edelbutz and the Department of Education's effort to create an avenue for informants to inform on public school teachers. Indeed, the Twitter bounty followed just 2 days after Commissioner Edelbutt created a website and form to report complaints against teachers. Shades of authoritarianism and totalitarian states are inescapable. Dude, the Moms for Liberty in New Hampshire are made up almost entirely of libertarians, so far as I can tell. They're libertarians. I mean, I don't know everyone's personal history and political preferences that are involved, but I have been in one of their meetings and they struck me as libertarians. I know the leader of it in New Hampshire is absolutely a libertarian. And also a knitter, too. The leader of the moms in New Hampshire is the founder of Work in Progress Night, knitting night at the Libertarian Club. So good in 2 counts. All right. These parallel efforts will undoubtedly show responsible and ethical teaching about our nation's history. Public school teachers now have a target on their backs, and Commissioner Edelbutt and the Department of Education have opened a pathway for political extremists to instigate ideologically motivated investigations that may lead to the discipline and public law or possible loss of professional credentials of teachers and administrators across the state. I'm so glad I'm reading this live. This is effing hilarious. This lawsuit is hilarious. Guys, mount that like button if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We don't normally read 50-page complaints, but when we do, they're usually pretty funny. This is the real world that we live in. We live in clown world. It is doublespeak. This is Orwellian. There is not a single bit of truth in this complaint. They literally made it up. The divisive concept statue has brought partisanship into our classrooms and ignites the fires of confrontation and discord in New Hampshire communities. To illustrate, the conflagration has been kindled, of all places, on an official website created and controlled by the defendant, New Hampshire Commissioner of Education. Indeed, the commissioner's website demonstrates how the divisive concept statute, alleged neutrality, and overbreath can be used for political purposes to target teachers directly. Under the divisive concept statute, complaints for violations of the statute may be brought by the aggrieved the aggrieved being the students, by the way, as a formal civil action in superior court, or with the New Hampshire Commissioner of Human Rights against a school or school district. Let's see. All right, I'm not going to go through this little clarification thing they did on the points because I don't think the points require clarification, and I'm already losing my voice. Let's keep going. Specific factual allegations. Excellent. New Hampshire courts have a long history of ensuring that New Hampshire schools are properly educating its children. I don't know about that. Not right now. No, I'm too new in the Libertarian Party, man. No, I'm way too new. I'm still learning all the libertarian stuff. Like, it's just not my place. I feel very strongly that, I'm not entitled to anything, I'm just because I have like a YouTube channel. Like, I think there are many better people for it than me. I would, however, definitely consider running to be a state rep to replace this bitch, Rosemary Rung. Crazy woman who represents my town in the state house. I would do that. I would take that bullet. I don't really want to be a state rep either, but I would do it. Maybe. I've got another thing I'm going to be working on for this election. All right. This is like history of education in New Hampshire. Blah da da ba da 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 da. See, I don't even know the parts like of the like what constitutes like what like I'm not a lawyer. Okay, let's read this. This looks interesting. To be clear, despite the misinformed political rallying cry, none of the lessons and activities outlined in New Hampshire's curricular law require the teaching of critical race theory to primary and secondary school students. CRT. So this is the part of the lawsuit where they say CRT is not taught in public schools, right? That's what they're saying. They just spent the whole first half of this lawsuit saying the fact that you banned critical race theory from being taught in public schools is illegal. And we are suing you for it. And now we're getting into the section of the lawsuit where they're like, we don't even know what the problem is. Critical race theory isn't even taught in public schools anyway. If it's not taught in public schools, then why do you have a whole long list of teachers crying about the fact that they can't teach it? If it's not taught in public schools anyway, then why are the teachers even upset? CRT is a practice of interrogating the role of race and racism in a society that has emerged in the legal academy and spread to other fields of scholarship. CRT developed from critical legal studies, CLS, which argue that law was not objective or political in the 1970s and expanded its reach to the examination in law schools in the 80s and 90s. Kimberly Crenshaw, who we know on this channel because we've watched some of her talks, one of the leading scholars of CRT, notes CRT is considered to be an evolving and malleable practice that critiques how the social construction of race and institutionalized racism perpetuate a racial caste system that relegates people of color to the bottom. Okay. On January 12th, 2021, Keith Ammon, Hero Keith Ammon is going to be his permanent title. Hero Keith Ammon, a majority member of the House of Representatives, introduced New Hampshire Bill HB 544, titled An Act Relative to the Propagation of Divisive Concepts, disingenuously framed under the banner of national unity. The bill's introducing sponsor unapologetically indicated at the legislative hearing for the bill that he did not believe in systemic racism and likened individuals who conduct diversity and inclusion trainings to snake oil salesmen. That is because Keith Ammon is a hero. The bill prohibited the teaching of so-called divisive concepts and threatened to financially penalize public employees, private businesses, and current and prospective state contractors for teaching or training on supposed divisive concepts related to race and sex. Divisive concepts were defined as claims that individuals in New Hampshire or the United States were fundamentally racist or sexist by virtue of his or her race or sex, blah, blah, blah. We've already covered this. Governor Sununu threatened to veto HB 544 if it was enacted, and so the bill was ultimately tabled. The bill was tabled because they added it to the budget, which they say in the next paragraph apparently, but they like separated the two. The bill was only tabled because they added it to the budget. Meanwhile, the state budget had to be adopted before July 1st, the commencement of the new fiscal year, in order to avert a shutdown of all state operations. You can feel the tension building. The House and Senate each adopted separate budget bills requiring reconciliation by a joint conference committee chaired by the chairman of the House Finance Committee. The chairman went on record stating that the divisive concepts provision needed to be included in the budget bills as a prerequisite to getting House votes for the passage of HB 1. So essentially what happened is the House was like to the Senate, because the Senate are a bunch of like Chris Sununu effing lackeys that are useless. And so the House said, basically, you ain't getting your budget if you don't leave this language in the bill, because the Senate had wanted nothing to do with it. The Senate was perfectly willing. The reason it was added to the budget in the first place is the Senate was perfectly willing to kill the bill to do Chris Sununu's dirty work. And so then the House was like, you're not getting your budget unless you pass this language. And they still managed to fuck it up, but they didn't fuck it up as badly as they could have. With the deadline for the adoption of HB1 looming and the specter of mandatory shutdown of state operations present, a quid pro quo solution suddenly materialized. The Senate rewrote HB 544 to no, it did not expand its scope. That is a fundamental lie. That is a fundamental lie. It made the scope smaller. It did not expand the scope. It made it smaller. The new bill, which was included by way of an amendment as part of HB2, the state's bill companion member calculated to force adoption of the budget and avoid state shutdown. On June 24, 2021, HB1 and HB2 were enacted just before the expiration of the budgetary deadline and signed by the governor. By its terms, HB2 includes a provision on teaching or prohibition on teaching discrimination, which only applies to public employees. What do they mean when they say public employees? Government employees. Do government employees have free speech protections when they are acting as teachers in government-funded schools? No. They do not. Is this the bill? Okay. Here is what was actually passed. No pupil in any public school in this state shall be taught, instructed, inculcated, what a great word inculcated is, or compelled to express belief in or support for any one or more of the following. That one's age, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, marital status, familiar status, mental or physical disability, religion, or national origin is inherently superior to people of other immutable characteristics. That an individual, by virtue of his or her immutable characteristics, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. That an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partly because of their immutable characteristics, and that people of one set of immutable characteristics should not attempt to treat others without regard to their set of immutable characteristics. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit discussing, as part of a larger course of academic instruction, the historical existence of ideas and subjects identified in this section. That right there is the section that says teachers can teach whatever they want. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit discussing as part of a larger course of academic instruction the historical existence of ideas and subjects identified in this section. They just can't be activists. They can teach all those topics. So any teacher who says, this bill just makes me feel like I can't teach history, I just can't have discussions with my students about what's going on with the news. Bullshit. It's right there in the bill. Right there in the bill. Literally in the lawsuit. Any person claiming to be aggrieved by a violation of this section, including the Attorney General, may initiate a civil action against a school or school district in Superior Court. Violation of this section by an educator shall be considered a violation of the Educator Code of Conduct that justifies disciplinary sanction by the State Board of Education. Now, what they took out of this bill that I have grave concerns about, what was originally in the bill that they took out was that there was originally a provision in the bill that said that you are not allowed to teach that the United States is a fundamentally racist country. So that's no longer in the bill, which means that schools can absolutely teach systemic racism. They can absolutely teach the 1619 Project. They can absolutely teach equity. They can teach all of those things. And it's not illegal. And Keith Ammon, because he's a hero, tried to introduce an amendment during the reconciliation process to get that amendment back into the bill, and the Republicans, because they fucking suck, ignored the amendment because they were pissed off that Keith Ammon made a public statement about emergency powers. So they didn't even consider the amendment because they were pissed off at him about something else. Republicans in the state of New Hampshire enabled critical race theory to continue to be taught in the state of New Hampshire because they were pissed off that Keith Ammon made a statement in the press about something that had nothing to do with the bill. That is real. They're trying to fix that. We'll see how it goes. But that was the provision that got taken out of the bill that I have grave concerns about, because we know from what we've watched on this channel that things like systemic racism, 1619 Project, even the idea of equity, that's how they're teaching it in schools. It's not illegal in New Hampshire. And if any teachers in New Hampshire actually watch my channel, they would know that they're not breaking the law by teaching any of those things, but they don't watch my channel, so they don't know that, which I think is kind of funny. More than half of Chris Sununu's Advisory Council on Diversity and Inclusion, both local members, including both local members, resigned in protest of Sununu's decision to sign into law the Divisive Concepts Statute. They wrote that the law aims to censor conversations essential to advancing equity. There's that word again. And inclusion in our state, specifically for those within our public education systems and all state employees. This will directly impact those who are working with some of the state's most vulnerable population, including educators, child welfare workers, and law enforcement. The Advisory Council on Diversity and Inclusion also maintained that the Divisive Concepts Statute was in direct conflict with the stated purpose of the council laid out in your 2018 executive order, instructing us to identify ways to combat discrimination and advance diversity and inclusion. So the Council on Diversity and Inclusion is literally saying that they want teachers to be able to teach racism in schools as a way to combat discrimination and advance diversity and inclusion. We live in 1984 for realsies. Oh, they've got Frank Adelbutt's Facebook post. Lest there be any doubt that the Divisive Concepts Statute was meant to be a solution for the non-existent problem of mandatory teaching of critical race theory, New Hampshire's public figures have repeatedly reaffirmed it. Defendant Frank Adelbutt advanced the charge, stating that our basic values are at risk if teachers claim that racism played a critical role in American history. And yet, the claim that racism played a critical role in American history is still able to be taught. It's not in the bill. You took it out. Frank Adelbutt's a good dude, though. We like Frank Adelbutt. Representative Ken Whaler, House Finance Chair, who supported, oh God, we're gonna have a conversation with Ken about the term anti-white, I see. And since passage of the Divisive Concepts Statute, New Hampshire Governor Sununu has tried to distance himself from critical race theory. Yes, because Chris Sununu's a rhino. He's a rhino. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Oh, Reopen New Hampshire's in here. Reopen New Hampshire, which organized against COVID restrictions and masks during lockdowns, has been posting about critical race theory and urging people to attend school board meetings. So have some white nationalist groups. What white nationalist groups? What white nationalist groups? They didn't say. As noted, Moms for Liberty has offered the bounty. HB 2 was not a law passed to end discrimination in New Hampshire public schools, nor was it viewed as such. These laws clearly already existed. Indeed, it merits emphasis that at best, to the extent of HB 2's efforts, any proper prescription against discrimination, it is unnecessarily confusing, wholly redundant of, and in a number of instances conflicts with long-established and well-enforced New Hampshire laws and regulations. Oh, good. He did start this. James Lindsay just started a new series on critical pedagogy and education. It's a must listen. Critical pedagogy is insane, guys. You should definitely check out this series from James Lindsay. Maybe I'll have him on to talk about it. I've been saving up my I want to have James Lindsay on. I just wanted to save it up because I don't he's so busy. and I want to be respectful of that. And I'm kind of taking a little bit of a breather right now. I'm taking it easy in December, but maybe I'll try to get Lindsay on to talk about critical pedagogy. I'll try to get Lindsay and Deb on at the same time. That'd be a good talk. It is, however, unconstitutional and should be invalidated unless the court construes its exceedingly narrow and substantively recasted along the lines of the roadmap provided by the Attorney General. While the CRT issue is politically manufactured problem employed by partisan zealots without any basis in reality, holy shit, teachers face the very real possibility of losing their jobs. Should a bounty hunter means mom, not an actual bounty hunter, mom, or the Department of Education informant choose to identify a teacher for allegedly violating the divisive concept statute. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, hang on. Another bounty. Like, they are obsessed. They are obsessed with the Moms for Liberty bounty. The only question I had about the Moms for Liberty bounty, and I told them this, was like, does it leave the impression that all critical race theory is banned in New Hampshire? Because as I've already established, it is perfectly legal to teach some elements here, and I don't want to lull parents into a false sense of security thinking that it is banned in New Hampshire when it's not. But I liked the bounty. I thought it was fun. It's amazing how much this is like put them on the back foot. They've got a whole paragraph about bounty. Okay, let's read this. Thus, any individual anonymously, if they wish, can report a teacher for teaching history, economics, or civics that does not conform to their personal views of the world. Just 2 days after the website and complaint form was published, the Moms for Liberty New Hampshire announced their bounty on teachers. To put it more concretely, the teacher who assigns a student or a class an oral report on race in America or New Hampshire and receives student work that includes references to systemic discrimination could implicate a rush to collect the bounty or file a complaint. No, they can't. That is completely incorrect. You know how I know it's incorrect? Because I can go back to the actual bill that you have in your actual complaint and draw your attention to Section 2. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit discussion as a part of a larger course of academic instruction, the historical existence of ideas and subjects identified in the section. Their own complaint skewers the argument that they're making in the complaint. If a current events question is raised concerning the nature and circumstances under which affirmative action was directed in a given circumstance, and the teacher explains that it was involved, whether it was merited, and what other remedies are available, they too could be subject to bounty hunters. I hope the Moms for Liberty makes t-shirts that says bounty hunters on them. That'd be a pretty great idea. I would buy one of those t-shirts for sure. To most, such debates, even if controversial, are part of a robust and well-rounded education. But now in New Hampshire, teachers must think twice before engaging in these discussions, particularly if teaching is the sole basis for their livelihood. Mr. Richmond's teaching of ethnic and racial genocides is now fraught with danger. And all of this is the result of partisan political crusade to resuscitate a constitutionally flawed presidential executive order that was judicially enjoined. Simply by continuing to teach lessons about history as they have always been taught in accordance with New Hampshire's education laws, teachers in New Hampshire now risk professional discipline and severe reputational harm. Yeah, everyone should show up. Oh, that's not what I meant to show. Sorry, Eureka Hope. Everyone should show up to the school board meeting wearing those t-shirts. That is exactly correct. That is a great effing idea, Nathan. But Eureka Hope is right. They should think twice about what they're teaching. They should. Let's see. What other goodies do we have in here? Oh, now they're talking about Jim Crow laws, which can be taught, according to their own complaint. Let's see. Let's see. Almost done, guys. Almost done. Basically repeating stuff they've already talked about, so I don't want to read it again. Also, because I'm losing my voice. I still have my show later with Joshua. Wait. Violation of the First Amendment. Let's read this. Let's read this. As a direct and proximate result of the divisive concept statute, defendants have violated the established rights of plaintiffs to freedom of speech under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution as it applies to states and their political subdivisions by the 14th Amendment, in that defendants have censored plaintiff's speech by restricting plaintiff's proper curricular discretion. False. False. Already adjudicated by the Supreme Court. False. Indeed, it broadly precludes any teaching that relies on concepts that certain members of the New Hampshire legislature deem offensive, including the idea that individuals may possess implicit or unconscious bias. Are teachers allowed to teach that the KKK is awesome? Should we allow teachers to teach actual white supremacy in the classroom? Or else we're violating their free speech? Which ironically would actually be banned by this law as well, if we're honest about it. Should we allow that? No. This is no different. Oh, Sarah says to all the locals peeps, I'm still having issues with my Microsoft account. I hope soon I will be on a Zoom call. Sarah, well, looking forward to seeing you soon. You've been missed. Guys, as a reminder, if you would like to join my locals community, the link is pinned to the top of the chat right now. If you become a supporter today, you will be just in time for our 6 p.m. Zoom call, and we would love to welcome you into the community and get to know a little bit more about you. But definitely join locals as a supporter. You'd really help me out. You're supporting the work I'm doing, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Let's see. I think this is about it. Prayer for relief. That's it. Let's see which lawyers really suck today. Nolan Perini. Nolan. Dude. The American Federation of Effing Teachers, of course. So, guys, that is the lawsuit against the anti-CRT bill in New Hampshire. If you would like to view this complaint, I did post it in my locals communities, exclusive for supporters. So the link is in the description, I believe, of the video. That's really all I have to talk about. I just kind of wanted to go over the complaint, and I thought I would do it with you guys watching. This was my first introduction to the complaint as well. And now we can blatantly see that the teachers of New Hampshire were so threatened by Moms for Liberty, by effing Moms for Liberty, offering a $500 bounty, that they decided to sue in a lawsuit that they know they can't possibly win because teachers do not have free speech protections when it comes to acting as their role as teachers in public schools. But I have to give the Moms for Liberty credit, man. I do. I have to give them credit. The fact that a $500 bounty resulted in a lawsuit because they were so bent out of shape over it is fabulous. All right, guys, that's all I have for right now. Now, as a reminder, I will be back at 9:30 tonight for my regular show with Joshua. Nothing remotely controversial. If you never tuned into Nothing Remotely Controversial, it is a show that we do every Thursday night where we take a fun, lighthearted look at the news. And Joshua, who is a professional psychic, tries to predict what's going to happen in the world. It's super, super fun. Even if you don't believe in psychics, even if you don't believe in magic, even if you just come because you think Joshua's really cute to look at, that's okay. We have a great time with it, so you can join us back on the channel today at 9:30. And please remember that I would love your support in my locals community. We'll be getting our Zoom. We'll be getting our Zoom on in a little over 2 hours. You can join us by going to kb.locals.com/support. It's $5 a month, it's $50 a year, or you can make a one-time gift. And I'm really looking forward to welcoming a whole bunch of new members into my locals community. Hopefully, you guys can come join us. It is the best place on the internet. All right, guys, thank you for spending some time with me today. We'll catch you later. See you soon.